AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. And welcome everybody to our Ask Gun Questions show. We try to go live pretty much every day, and on Saturdays, the idea is to go live and answer gun questions that come into our AskGunQuestions.com website, like it said in the intro. Well, it's been a little sporadic the last couple of weeks, so this one is trying to get us back on track. I just barely sent out links to Clover Tack and to Tony Simon, the two that join us for this chat, this conversation. Today I've just got my little co-host here. And our new cactus. We have a cactus now. So if you have any questions that you have about guns, we can answer them. We know every single answer to everything. Or on the crazy off chance that we don't have an answer, we can find an answer. We have resources. So why don't we close the door? I can't tell, but there's a temperature thing behind the little dog there. And it is super cold outside. This close. Oh, that's why I have a cord in the door. That's why it's not closing. So Roy is joining us. Welcome. Since we're not getting a bunch of questions pouring in right off the bat, what we'll do is go over to a list. Not a shared, but a database that we have that has all the questions in it. And as they come into that AskGunQuestions.com website, they accumulate in this database. So there's something like thousands of questions in here by now. And let's see, the last couple, we have one that's all the way back from September. So I'm not going to answer that one because it's about a shotgun. I'll let somebody else answer that one. All right. Got one a couple of weeks back from Woods. Thanks for asking some questions in here to give us something to start with, something to chat about. The question is, I guess I can put it on the screen here. Puppy, what is Puppy even looking at? Oh, there's a bug flying around. Did you see that bug? I just now seen it. There's a bug. All right, that's fine. I see where it is. Oh man, see, I got a new batteries in my electric fly swatter here. As soon as I can get a good beat on this thing, got it. It's doing a good job of getting rid of bugs now. So why is there a 10-day wait for guns in some states? Is there any data behind that practice? No, definitely no data behind it. It was part of the marginalization of guns, part of the agenda to make guns into some sort of cause of violence, rather than just they somehow create the violence. I guess people with small minds or small intellect, when they see something next to something, they assume that they're the same. Like that fly buzzing around, you figure, oh, that fly must come from the dog because he's stinky. No, the fly just flies over by the dog because he's stinky. But if you wash the dog, then he won't be stinky. There won't be flies around. There won't just still be flies coming out of them. So I think the 10-day waiting periods was just the idea that, oh, well, if we let people just go buy a gun, then they're just going to walk over to the gun shop and solve this petty argument with violence. So we're going to solve that by making this wait. but in reality, it was just a compromise, I guess. Some people who could care less said, yeah, sure, sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. And a bunch of people said, well, if you'll accept that and leave my other stuff alone, then I'll agree to it. And that was a bad strategy. And now we still have these things. I have no idea where they came up with 10 days, I guess, to mess with 2 weekends. Some other reasoning. I imagine it's just to mess with 2 weekends. Pretty much anytime you do something for 10 days, there's going to be weekends involved, so it turns into 14. Any data behind it? I've never heard anybody re-suggested any place or say that it should happen or that we need more of it. So I haven't seen any data that says that it's so good, but I haven't also looked at it or anything. But that's a good question. I think if we had what I've attempted to do over at Minuteman is to itemize or list or have readily available all the different things that we have to deal with, all the different elements involved in the fight. So 10-day waiting periods are an element of the fight. They're not their major objective. They're one of the tools in their inventory. And because of that, they're not one of our major issues. I think we tend to worry about the NFA. We tend to worry about gun-free zones. We tend to worry about other things that have more priority, I guess. But I don't know. How many states have a 10-day wait? That's a good question. I have a map that has, that I tried to chart that. Roy is saying that the waiting period is going to be 30 days next year in California. Again, just the idea that somehow throttling possession or acquisition is going to solve bad guys doing anything. There's no one questioned that. No one challenged that concept. It's given them territory. It's given them resource and ability to suggest this. That's why you have a 30-day period, is because they first probably said 5-day. And then they're like, you know what? That doesn't cover 2 weekends. What if the person's drunk every Friday and they still have this crazy idea because they're such a hothead violent? So they probably went to 30s thinking, oh, gun owners won't mind. They're only buying a rifle for hunting once a year anyway. So I think that's one that's worth challenging. Based on that whole second part of the question, is there any data? So all I got to do is justify why it's necessary, because it creates a bureaucracy to worry about it, and it gives the gun shops additional burden. So if the gun shops are so crucial and critical, and they've got such an important position in the whole scheme of things, then why give them extra work? It's unnecessary. Let's audit that, right? Let's make sure that it's necessary. But I don't know if there's some sort of a system for any legislation that goes back and challenges it to see if it's worthwhile. Oh shit, I didn't give these guys a StreamYard link. I'm a dumbass. I gave them the YouTube link. Sorry about that, Tony. Clover's sleeping. He might be out on Small Business Saturday, or he's just sleeping. I just saw a cool Instagram as I went to go give Tony the thing. Can you see it behind the dog there? It'll start here in a second again. It's right there. So these guys are just it'll start here in a second. Those guys are all just sitting in a room, and this dog comes in and starts, being mean to him, I guess, scaring him. But the one dude just booked it right out of there. Went through that door. I don't know why they're scared of that dog. They're making themselves the target of that dog. So that's where they originally, that one guy leaves and they all just go behind the table. I would just grab the dog. Come on. What is wrong with them? They're all bigger than that dog. They can just grab that dog. Anyway, I thought that was funny. So I gave Tony a link now. We'll see if Tony jumps in. Sounds like he'll jump in. Plain Nut is saying in New Jersey, it's a wait of 30 days between handgun purchases. Yeah, that kind of throttling it's unjustified and it's unnecessary. And it really is just some idiot compromised, some politician who could care less. It's like, yeah, how could that bother anybody? Brooke Cheney makes a good example of competition shooters who like to buy, let's say, 2 of something so that they have one as a backup right away, so that they can have one that can be repaired. They can have one that's their practice and one that's their game day gun. They can have the one that they use and then the one that they alternate to, so that they're very similar. And there's probably something to be said for trying to get those things consecutively. And the idea that you prevent her from doing that, or someone wants to buy shotguns for their 3 grandkids. Now, what's the point of making them wait 3 months for that? It just seems like a stupid infringement, a stupid requirement, stupid obligation for everybody that has to worry about it, because somebody has to enforce that. And that means there's got to be some sort of a record taken of it. So that means there's probably new forms. That means some department in the bureaucracy is created to make a new form and go through all the red tape and stuff to create a form. They take for granted that this stuff just happens. So, all right. So next one is Mike White is saying, as the saying goes, a right delayed is a right denied. So that was Hillary who started saying that in the was it 16? I don't know if she started saying that in 16. It might have been 16. Wow, that's a long time ago. I think she might have gotten it from somewhere, but she's the one that started saying it, and then gun people started saying it as a response to them saying the waiting periods or CCW permits and that kind of stuff. I can't really research it. I was trying to research the question, why is there a 10-day wait? But I think that's something that if I had a bunch of people in here, I might be able to research it. But really, for me at least, I do better research when I usually have something on, maybe a conversation, but more typically just music or some movie I've seen 100 times when I'm doing research, so that I can keep focus on it. Something like, why is there a 10-day waiting period? I think that might actually take some time to research. I'm trying to think of where I've ever even seen any of that data compiled. Again, it's not a main issue. Some of the main issues have entire projects focused on them. There must be somewhere that has information on this, but I don't know if I've ever seen like a timeline of waiting periods. What else do we get waiting periods for? Is there other stuff that's throttled? There's probably stuff with alcohol. I know there's places where you can't buy it on Sunday. Maybe you can't buy it in the morning or something. I know you can. There's places that stop selling it at night. So I'm going to leave that one as if it was unanswered, because I really didn't answer it. But that's sort of me cheating. I'll go at some point and maybe do some research on that. And then the next time that question comes up, maybe I'll have been able to get more data on it. So the next one is also from Woods. Thanks again. Put it in here so I can post it up on the screen. I yawn a lot, and I have to drink coffee all the time when I'm in here by myself. I don't like hosting by myself. So then this one says, what is a trapdoor carbine, and are they still made? So as far as I know, the trapdoor Springfields, I don't know about a trapdoor carbine, but it's essentially where you take a black powder gun, some kind of gun that uses you stuff the muzzleloader, where you stuff the powder down. Oh, I sent it to you after, Tony. Sorry. I think I sent it to you that second time. I just noticed after nobody joined in, I was like, oh, I'm going to go check and make sure I sent him the link. And then I seen that I did not. So I sent it on Instagram again. Shit, let's close it. So essentially you take like a black powder muzzleloader, or a muzzleloader, I don't know why I keep calling it black powder. A muzzleloader, and where you normally push the oh, what the heck? Something happened to the link when I send it? Let me try it again. Yeah, it didn't send. Thanks for coming over here. Copy. What's going on? Copy. Paste. Huh. I think it sent that time. It sent to Clover and took, but he got it, I think. That's messed up. Maybe I didn't click Control V good enough and flipped over to Clover's and didn't even realize. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's true. This little dog is here, but he's sleeping. He went out and pooped right before the show, so he's having his after poop nap. Oh, I woke him up. All right, so anyhow, sorry. So trapdoor is where you take a black powder muzzle loader, and you take, I don't know, maybe the last portion of that muzzle loader where normally the hole comes in to light the powder, and you cut that off. You chop it, and then what all do they do? They turn that into a lock or an action, and the trapdoor essentially drops down usually. So that last part of the barrel where the powder and the ball would normally be, they just let that drop down, and you put a cartridge in. They create a chamber in that part of the barrel back there, and then when the whatever the action is, usually a lever, when the lever is pulled, the back portion of the barrel drops down, it exposes a chamber. Is there an ejector? Sometimes there's an ejector, and then it operates the ejector, but essentially chops a muzzle loader so that you take the last couple of inches off of the barrel, not the muzzle end, the other end, and you create a firing pin instead of the old either flint or percussion cap or whatever kind of mechanism it had before. And usually they just left the trigger and hammer go, and then where there would be a flint or a cap, it was almost always a percussion cap, they would just put a little like seesaw lever, a little fulcrum thing there, and then the hammer would come down. Instead of hitting a percussion cap, it would hit a lever, and then that lever would smack a firing pin, and then that firing pin would set off the cartridge. So it was essentially a pretty, I don't know if it was easy, but it was a modification you could do to a muzzle loader. So if you had an inventory of muzzle loaders, you'd take them offline, you'd have this modification done to them, and when they came back online, they were single shot trapdoor cartridge shooting guns. So they existed at a time when cartridges were just being invented, and muzzle loading would, even a competent person who could muzzle load really quick, it would take a certain amount of time to shoot. But then somebody with bullets could just shoot. There were no automatic or semi-automatic or any kind of guns that fed anything for the most part till lever actions came out, which were a ways down the road still. But you could shoot way faster, and your ammo was pretty much good to go. You didn't have to fart around stuffing muzzles all the time. Yeah, Tony, thanks for jumping in. Sorry I messed up the links there.
Oh, it's okay. Hey, how do I sound?
Hey, okay.
Right.
I'm there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, the guys have been busting my chops on the Gun and Gear Review podcast, saying I sound horrible. So I used the opportunity of Black Friday to buy a new headset, so it's on the way.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not as fancy as other people, so I mean, to me, it sounds nice and loud and clear. I guess somebody might not like the tone or something, and then there must be some kind of background noise that it's auto killing, so that you can kind of hear that. But I could care less. I mean, compared to an old walkie-talkie, it sounds awesome. Compared to like yelling across the room, it sounds great. So we're on two sides of the country having a conversation. It sounds good to me.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, trapdoor, exactly what you said. That's how they developed, and then they just started selling them, which is it's a door. It's a locking block, a lever, usually to drop the locking block when you go to load. Then you load your single round in, you close the lever up, and you cock the hammer and fire. I enjoy those. They still sell them new through Taylor's and Company,
Oh, they do.
and yeah, yeah, I mean, you can get a replica, obviously, but that's what they sell. One of my guys, Eric, over at CNJFO, when we host the youth events, he brings every type of 22 he has, and he actually has a 22 or the loading block, a carbine trapdoor, and he has it's a entire like the Quigley Down Undergun, except it's in 22 long rifle, and it's
Oh, you
built on
know
a
what?
smaller scale.
Now I'm messing them up. A trapdoor, what you're talking about is a falling block, and that's what I'm thinking too.
Rolling block.
I was
Oh,
describing a falling block, but a trapdoor is where they would chop the butt off of a
oh,
and it would come up and over. I mean, essentially, it's the same thing. It's just that it would come the cut off part would come up on a hinge and
Oh,
over.
it was pretty much the conversion, converting the muzzle loaders over to what eventually became a falling block end.
Well, the falling blocks existed, and then they're like, "Oh, I could go buy a new falling block, or
Hmm.
and throw away all my guns that I already have, or take these ones I already have, cut the end off, and sort of make them into replica of a falling block, essentially. But essentially, take the new modern tech of a bullet and jam it into these muzzle loaders, and just cut a chamber into the back, and then use the back end of the very like last little bit of the muzzle loading barrel was turned into the falling or the trapdoor part, which is essentially the action. And
Hmm.
like I was saying, so they could still use the hammers and stuff from the percussion caps. They just, instead of the percussion cap, it made a little thing push a firing pin. But they're decent. I mean, they shot well, uh, considering what they were and everything. But the thing is, if you made a gun like a falling block or whatever, those first guns for first cartridges, I'm pretty sure they put rifling in them right away. I mean, it might have been different rifling that we have today, or more crude or something, but that had to be better than a muzzleloader, which I don't know. They could have had some rifling in them. I don't. I really. That's older than me. I have shot them, but I don't know if I know. Well, I know that I don't know what if they had rifling in them. I don't think they did. I think they were smoothbore. So even if you did convert a muzzleloader, unless you cut rifling into that smoothbore, you're shooting faster, but you're not shooting anywhere near as accurately as somebody with a. And it was the sharps back in the day. I think those were the first, right? That's where we get sharpshooter from.
Hmm.
Yeah, I remember reading about a lot of this stuff throughout the years, and then it kind of made more sense to me when I did the Old West Guns deck, and we
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
those
You're
called
right, dude.
data.
So I've shot this, and you're right because I confused the two. So I fired a Civil War trapdoor, Springfield. I've
Yeah, and
actually
those
fired one.
those existed because we had all these Springfields, and like I say, they
Hmm.
weren't gonna just throw them away or sell them to some other country because nobody really wanted them. But after a minute, as soon as they made bullets, everybody's like, "Why am I muzzle loading again?" Like, no,
Oh
I
yeah,
want bullets. So they just can. They just. I think they just went to Springfield and said, "Make these better," and they went, "Okay." And that's where I don't think the conversions were done in somebody's shack, right?
no, 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 no. I mean, they figured out how to do it. Oh yeah, I love the fact that we both confused the same thing.
Well,
Yeah.
that's because I was describing it. I confused it and then started describing the falling block instead of describing a trapdoor. But yeah, it's like I say, I'm familiar with these guns. I've shot them a million times, but I'm not a. I don't sit here thinking about them all the time. I just started thinking the wrong thing. Sparrow is asking, welcome. I haven't seen the name before. What does the FS in Beretta 92 FS mean? Defense Stat is saying full size. Is that correct? I don't know.
I don't know. Let's find out.
Yeah,
I
Defense Stat
mean,
is saying full size, so I'll go with full size. I mean, I don't know the
it's
Beretta nomenclature or nothing.
yeah. I don't have my Beretta. What is it? My Beretta super secret code. So I just don't have that code ring.
Most of the companies have their own naming system or whatever, so sometimes it makes sense. Sounds like that one's fairly straightforward if front sight, or I mean, full size FS. And then I'm assuming C would be like compact or something. But I mean, like Smith, Glocks, you just have to dig in and start memorizing. Their SIGs, I think, are
It,
like some of them
yeah,
are
it
nice.
really gets down to you just got to remember this stuff because you're not gonna know. Like the Beretta 92, is it 92 is the 40 cal version. It says 90 and then the word two. Like I thought that was something weird, but yeah, that was it. We got the FS, and then we got the M9s, A1, A3, even the A4, and now
So
they got the X's.
sometimes with like the Glocks, you can take a bite out of it or get to figure it out by owning one or like being familiar with one and then using that as your like, okay, everything else is a, everything and, get using that as your base and then starting from there. I don't know if that works on all the things, but that's how I learned Glocks is like, okay, I have this one and I know the one
Mm-hmm.
bigger turns into it. The one smaller is a 26 and the one bigger is a whatever. So
Yeah,
then you
it's like
start
that.
learning, okay, in 40, it's a 23, and then the one bigger is a 20 or whatever it was. Yeah. But
It
actually,
is hilarious. Yeah.
I used to know up until maybe Gen 4, and I quit paying attention because they would start to come out with the thin ones and stuff. But up until the thin ones and like whenever the 380, they started making them in the US and could make a 380 here because that one was never in the United States until they had a way to produce it here because of the 1968 prevented them from making a 380 here or importing a 380, I should say.
Importing the 380. Yeah.
So for a while there, I could keep up on them, and it was only because I was working at a shop and having conversations. But now that there's other options, there's what would you say as far as number of Glock people out there? There's probably a fraction, like a third of the Glock people out there that there was at one point, maybe
hmm
less even.
Yeah, it's less. Yeah, it's less.
So at one time you kind of had to, it was worthwhile knowing the numbers just because there was so many people that were asking questions about it. But now so few people ask questions about it. Like what's a Glock 13 or whatever. It's not 13, I guess. What's a
Yeah.
Glock 30 or 32? Like, I don't know.
hmm
Like I haven't even remember last time somebody asked me a model. So, and then if you get into Smiths and Berettas and HKs and stuff, I mean, again, unless you, like I knew the H&K MP5, and you could kind of go, okay, that's a newer, bigger gun than that. It must be this low, it was this one, and these guns are smaller than that. But until you have, listen, to, I guess catching my bearings, until I have some way to get my bearings, then the model numbers are just going to be something you have to look up.
Yeah, I mean, you're really gonna have to Google them after a while because, I mean, who the heck knows, what the 45 gaps numbers were? I mean, I just looked them up and it's like 39, 30, 37, 38, and 39 are all gaps, 45 gap.
And I would have only known back in the day because those are clock numbers, but no one used them. So that means they had to be gap or they had to be 357
357 SIG.
SIG or one of
Yep.
the other calibers that nobody ever shot. And that's just because Glock happened to give those calibers their own numbers. Now you go to like Smith and Wesson, and they'll have a model number, and it'll have 6 different calibers because they don't do it the same way.
Yeah, because it's just funny to me. Because I remember before I figured out the cheat code on how to buy handguns in other states and then have them sent to Jersey and then apply for my pistol purchase permit in Jersey after my FFL already had the gun. Like I could buy a handgun in another state, but it has to be sent to my FFL. So I finally figured that out, and I missed out on a few of them because I wanted to buy an actual Glock 45, a Glock in 45 gap just to have one because you know darn well they're going to disappear. I mean, they're just going to fade away. The ammo is going to fade away. The gun's going to fade away.
Yeah, it's going to be like I don't know if it's going to be a rare collectible, but it'll be rare and it'll be a collectible. Like
Yeah,
both of those
and
things will exist. Now, it may not be everybody wants one, but it'll be a cool thing to own. I'd like to have one. Or I would have liked to
yeah,
have one.
and it was $300 because again, it's a used Glock in 45 gap. Like who would? I mean, as a gun geek, I love that.
I think I'd actually, I don't even know. I'd like to get, I think I might have a specimen round of 45 gap, but I'm not even
Hmm.
positive. So what I'd like to have from somebody who shoots 45 gap is like one round of a bunch of different kinds of ammo that they might have. Like, so I could get like, 5 or 6 different types of gap, because there must
Yeah,
be
right.
hollow. There must be something like ball ammo, even
They
though there's
had to be
probably
hollow points.
cheap,
They
right?
had to
And
be
then
hollow points because they were developed for the freaking police.
that's what I mean. And like, probably a couple and maybe brands or something. So I think there might be some variety. There's probably not a ton though. But anyway, I think that would be kind of neat as a collector. But well, I don't know.
Yeah, my guys, because I'm the gun guy at work, and one of my guys has Glock 30. That's the 45 ACP subcompact. The 45 version of Glock 26. And he was like, "Yeah, dude, this is just too big for me to carry. The older I get, and I'm looking for something the same size but a little thinner. But I really like the 45 round." And I'm like, "I'm not gonna do this to you, bro. I'm not gonna introduce you to the 45 gap and have you yelling at me, and when you figure out you can't find ammo."
No, and even if it had been a viable thing, like it's splitting hairs between two things that I don't know if they needed to be split here. If there needed to be a middle ground between. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just because you can put a line between two things doesn't mean that there needed to be something to satisfy. There was nothing to satisfy there. There's a reason there's two things. Like there's larger and there's smaller, but that's how
Yeah,
they
I mean,
experiment and that's how they figured things out. Like it could have developed into something else, and how would you know until you built it? How would you know until it existed and hit the market?
well, I just thought it was funny, to be around when all this was happening and to listen to the gun mags because they were paid for shills. I
That's
mean, as they try to convince you that somehow 45 gap was a great idea.
Yeah, like what needed to happen? A
Yeah,
big fat short round. That's what we needed. Everyone's been waiting for it, and it's finally here. Yeah.
if we reduce the overall, because you didn't do anything with the width of the round, by the way. So if we reduce the overall length, you can really wrap your hand around this grip on this 45, and you still have a 45 because I mean, the power stayed the same. It was just modern powders now, and so it didn't need to have the cartridge be as long. And I'm like, well, nobody said the freaking 45 was too long. It's not like it's a 357 Magnum. And you got to put it in a pistol grip, and it's a real problem on a semi-auto handgun. It's that it's fat and it limits how much ammo you carry. I'm like,
Exactly. It's
what?
sort of like the nobody's asking for a shorter barrel and a longer mag. Like, no, people want shorter grip and longer barrel usually. And then they come out with something that's the other way around and they kind of got to sell it. I mean, there's always somebody that wants it, but
Well, for me, I thought it was
well, I thought it was to make a 9mm frame with a 45 in it.
okay. I see what you're saying. See,
But
I looked at the
Kevin
45
actually,
gap.
I
I
haven't
didn't
looked.
understand it. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying I haven't looked at the frames next to each other. I don't have that in my recall anymore. I think the frame is the same as a 9, but is it
Hmm.
single stack then? Like I don't know how they compensate for the fat unless it's a completely different frame. I don't think it is. Um,
Yeah, it's similar to a Glock 17. I'm on the Wikipedia page looking it up now just to see. Yeah, it uses a wider beveled slide, larger barrel, different size magazine, but otherwise it's similar to a Glock 17.
yeah, that makes no sense. So then it is a completely separate frame, like you're saying. Like, yeah, they made it shorter, but they couldn't make it the same
Yeah.
width because then it would be a single stack mag and no one would have bought it. So they made a giant goofy upper. And
Hmm.
I think that was its other problem is you couldn't take the lower and do anything. Like you couldn't swap calibers, or am I wrong? But that was plain nut was going to say, is there any compatibility with gap and ACP? Can you swap barrels to interchange them? And I think
I
that
don't
was
think
the problem is it was a 9 millimeter size frame, but with 45 guts. So you couldn't turn the gap into a 9 or anything else. And you couldn't turn a 9 into a gap. You had to buy a gap and all it could be was a gap.
so.
And
Yep.
I think that was
And it
one of
was
the
in the
downfalls.
standard capacity for the full size gun. Again, it's the size of a Glock 17, 10 rounds. So what's
Okay, so they staggered the mag, so it's not quite single, but it's super staggered. So there's only 10 rounds in there instead of 15 or whatever in a
uh
9 or a
so
40.
you yeah, so you excuse me, is it 15 and a 40 or
I think
13
it's
and a
13
40?
and a 40 and 15
Mm-hmm.
in a
A
9.
9. Yeah. 15 in the Glock 17. Oh, look, Glock 23. The factory 15 round magazines from the larger 22 would work. All right, so the Glock 22 and 40 carries a 15 round magazine. The Glock 23 carries a 13 round magazine. These are all in 40. So when you got to the magic little school bus that was the Glock 45 ACP guns, the full size, 13 rounds. That's the Glock 21. It had 13 rounds. The subcompact is the 30, and it had 10 rounds. And then the 36, and it was the slim one, and it had 6 rounds. And then they had the competition version, which sounds kind of cool.
Is that a long slide?
Yeah, which is a Glock 41
It's probably
competition version.
only as long as like
A 34.
yeah, 34, not like an 17L.
Yeah, no. It has a what was it? 5.3-inch barrel.
So
I
I
just
carried
found it all
the
crazy.
I
Mhm.
carried a 40 in that. What is it? What'd you just call it? A 34, 35?
35 is the 40 version, yeah.
Yeah, I carried a 35, I guess, for a while.
Yep.
It was a nice gun.
Yeah.
It was big, but it
Uh,
was nice.
It's just funny to me because I carried a full size 1911 concealed. And people are like, oh, those competition clocks are huge. I'm like, the barrel is 0.3 inches longer than a 1911. That's it.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
It just seems
Um,
long because all the rest of their guns are shorter, so much shorter than a 1911, I guess.
yeah, their most popular gun is a 4.3-inch barrel on a friggin' 19. There's a 4-inch barrel on a 19, but that's their standard. I love the Glock. I swear they straight trolled everybody with the Glock 45 just to do it. It's like whatever you do, make sure when we come up with another 9 millimeter, it says Glock 45 on it.
Yeah, I don't think it bothered them at all. Like, I don't think they did it intentionally, but when it came up that way, they were like, okay, I don't care at all. Like, let
Yeah, but what about the Americans? No one cares. They're like, we'll sell this thing around the world. We're not worried about the one country that adopted the 45 ACP.
oh,
They'll
well,
buy it.
we adopted it, but then a bunch of people adopted it because of us. So we
Yeah,
weren't, I mean,
Well, who did? I mean, Spain, but they
Oh,
made
that's
their own version.
Philippines and some of the
Norway,
countries
I
after
think.
World War II that didn't have the resources, I imagine, to do their own thing. And we, what would they call that? Where we just gave them stuff,
Yeah, Lend Lease
especially if we
or
were,
whatever.
especially if we were there. We were just like, hey, we're leaving all this stuff here. Go ahead.
Yeah,
And they're like,
here.
I guess we shoot 45s and M1 cartridges.
I guess we're shooting 45 now. Want these free guns? I mean, we know your economy's trash and you have to prioritize other things, but you need a military. So here's some 45s. Frig, what are we going to do with this crap? Okay, thanks.
So I just put up a poll for all the people that want to participate in it. It's free today. You don't have to pay nothing to be in this poll. Favorite brand: Glock, Sig, FN, or HK?
There
HK
you go.
off the gate is winning. 100% of the votes are for HK at this point.
There you go.
Let's see. So then another question that came in earlier from 500 Magnum. That's a live question. Any experience with 1911 drum mags? Are they reliable? I've got a bit of experience with drum mags and pistols, and with a drum mag for 1911, I guess some experience, but I don't know. Do you get it? You have to travel, I'm assuming, to have experience with these.
Yeah, I'd have to travel and then find someone who's crazy. Um, so no, I've never dealt with the drum mags for 1911. Um, Sounds fun, cool until especially if somebody else is paying for the ammo.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
yeah,
They
outside
probably
of that,
made them back in the day. I'm trying to think of like in the old days. There would have been something probably made out of sheet metal. They haven't made full auto 1911s. That is a thing. So somebody might have
and
made them for that, but I just don't remember seeing them. I mean, I might have seen one. I for some reason I do envision like a metal 1911 mag that seems old to me, but like I say, I don't know if I'm remembering something from like a manual or some sort of museum or something that just theoretically existed, or if it's something that I seen at a gun show back in the day. It certainly wasn't popular. I'm having to remember, the oldest memories of in the cobwebs or whatever to try to picture it.
yeah, I mean, I've seen the stick mags, the extended like 20 round stick mags for 19. Ooh,
Yeah.
first swing and a miss. Pro mag makes it. No.
So there are polymer ones, and that's what I was going to say. Is there are newer polymer things, but for a 1911, you have to. I mean, it's designed. The gun itself, the mag has to be metal. There's no way to make a polymer mag for 1911. There's not enough room in there to
Mhm.
have the material. So it would have to have some kind of a metal throat, and then you could have like a polymer drum at the end. So I think that I have seen a polymer one, and I know I have a video that has like a billion views of me looking at it at the gun shop, and I don't remember if we shot it. But here's the thing: anytime you have a drum mag, that's a circular thing, right? It's well, there's helical mags from one company, but essentially, unless you're talking the Russian one or the Calicos, most drum mags are just around. They're not helical. So if you're talking just a circular thing, imagine how there's only a couple of ways that you can create tension on a circle like that. And then on an AK or an AR, it comes up one side of the drum and goes into the gun. But on a 1911, it's not a snail. It goes to the middle and then takes essentially a 90-degree turn and then goes up into the gun. And
Mhm.
that's where the issue is. Like that's a very difficult thing to do smoothly. So they'll exist and they work. You can load them, but the unloading of them becomes pretty inconsistent. And a 1911 needs spring pressure. It can't have too much or it won't work. It won't
Mhm.
cycle, and not enough, and you're not feeding anymore. So they technically work, but then on the other hand, you're not shooting full auto through a drum mag, like you said, like Tony said. If they want to shoot fast in 1911, you just put a long stick mag in it. So they do exist, but the reason that I'm having trouble even picturing them is because they just exist to look at. Nobody buys them to use or do anything with. And even the ones for like Rugers and Glocks and stuff, you can kind of get them better nowadays, but they're just it's a lot of weight. So now you're putting a lot of weight on the what do you call it, the mag release, And that usually means that it's not just sitting in there. Now it's pulling down. And most guns aren't designed to have the mag pulled down. They're designed to have the mag just sit there. And if anything, push up a little bit, create pressure. So if you're pulling down, then that mag spring is even more critical. It has to push up. And if as soon as you get past 20, now it's a mag spring that has to have the be able to sit down and shut up while 50 rounds are shoved in there, but then also stand up and push when there's three rounds in there. So that's just asking a heck of a lot out of a spring. It's going to be very weak, and then it's going to be even weaker. It's like it can't be strong, or else you'd never be able to load it. So it's just a difficult mechanism until they come up with. There probably already are like multiple springs in there or something that relieve pressure off each other. I'm not even sure. So it's a lot of tech, and most of them, there's a reason you don't see everybody walking around with drum mags on their guns, on their pistols.
Yeah, I mean, drum mags are. I mean, even for rifles and submachine guns, they very rarely work well. I mean, and they're. I mean, because the Thompson uses a 100 round drum mag, right? That's what they used, or 50.
Well, no, yes, they did have 100, but it's super big because on the Thompson, the mag, the rounds are only on the outside. They're not, the inside is nothing but spring. They're
Mhm.
not any, and actually, no, the hundreds do kind of put them in. No, I'm trying to remember. The hundreds might have double stacked a little bit, but they're typically a 50 round mag or a 20 round mag or 25 or something. And the bullets are all around the outside. So they're essentially a really long stick mag that's wrapped around the outside of that drum. So,
Gotcha.
but it's still the same problem. And it uses a winding spring, but it's the
Hmm.
same kind of problem. It's like, that spring pressure, they probably use some kind of clockwork to let that spring pressure be really, 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 really strong, but only give you a little tick mark of increment. So Tommy gun mags are strong. They're made out of metal, and you can dent them, and they're gonna have problems because they're metal. But they're strong, and they're not gonna dent real easy. The issue with Tommy gun mags is inserting them. You have to insert them through this stupid little weird track from the
Hmm.
side. It's just the
It's
olden days.
horrible. It's
Yeah,
horrible.
it's impossible, really. And there's even with a fun, like I've never seen anybody be able to load a fast drum mag on a Thompson. You can stick a mag in, no problem, but the drum mag from the side is just a pain in the ass.
I mean, truly, loading a stick mag in is a pain in that. But
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
fair, to be fair, it's the first generation of submachine gun.
Literally, the first submachine gun is a
Hmm.
Thompson, 1928 or whatever, or 1918. I think the first one was.
Yeah, 1918. There was a trench sweeper. That's what he developed. It didn't have the buttstock, but it had the pistol grips. And I think it was like 1,000 rounds per second. I mean, a minute, excuse me. So it had a very high cyclic rate.
I like them like 57 Chevys. Like I respect the hell out of them. I know they can do stuff. They're just bigger than a car than I want. Like they're bigger than I want, but I understand them and I get them, and I can totally
Yeah,
see somebody loving them.
fully loaded, you have almost a 12-pound pistol caliber carbine with iron sights. Uh, one, two different levers, one for safety and then one to fire selector. Neither one of them are ergonomic, so you really had to take one hand off the gun to select. To take it off safe, you have to take your hand off the gun, and to put it on full auto, you have to take your hand off the gun.
It's like a external long lever looking thing, like an old fashioned airplane with a big old gear shifter that's just unnecessarily long and twisted and round and everything.
I mean, you got to give it to the guy. I mean, he
But it was the
developed it.
style of the time. They
Yeah.
were figuring out they could do cool stuff with metal, I guess, and they were used to clocks and stuff. They hadn't seen a computer or nothing yet. They'd never seen a
Hmm.
spaceship.
And I mean, you had that, and then when World War II came around, you developed the other, the grease gun, which was based off of just launching 45 projectiles and figuring out how cheaply you could do it. And you figured out what you could leave off. And by the time you have the M3A1 or A2, you were like, yeah, you can even leave the charging handle off and just put a freaking thumb
Yeah.
hole, a finger hole in the bolt.
Dimple on there. That's all you need. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, how many times do you think somebody jumped out of someplace or fell off of something, and like a chunk of grass or like some piece of weed or a vine or something got stuck underneath one of those selectors on one of those levers you're talking about on a Thompson?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's not going to happen, but it can happen. Like it shouldn't happen, but it can happen if you fell off of something and it fell into the dirt or whatever. And how many
And
times have it
then,
happened before they went, make sure these levers ain't outside the gun anymore. Like none of
yeah.
these levers should be outside the gun anymore.
And we're talk about a firearm that went through kind of World War One ended. Tommy gun was built. All right, so that was 1918. He refined it, slowed the rate of fire down, put a stock on it, did all of that, and it still wasn't really picked up. But the Marine Corps picked it up in the interwar period. So the Marine Corps had a lot of Tommy guns, and what they did was the Corps used them to guard mail trains because there were a lot of robberies on trains because mail moved around the country on trains. So the United States Marine Corps was actually deployed on mail trains using Tommy guns or drum magazines. So that was a real F around and find out moment. So immediately after they found out Marines were on trains with freaking fully automatic submachine guns, robberies stopped.
Huh. That prevented robberies. What do you know? And they were probably robbing them with horses and shit, right?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So that happened, and then the Corps took those same guns to Nicaragua and Haiti. So by the time and to China. So by the time World War II broke out, Tommy gun was actually well established in the Corps. I mean, it was part of Marine Corps ethos. So that's one of the reasons I would want one, but I wouldn't really want one. You know what I mean? It's like, no, dude, I've shot the fully automatic version and it is way complicated, way expensive. And the semi automatic version just looks effing weird because it has to have a 16-inch barrel.
That's the That is one of the reasons why there should be no NFA right there. If for no other reason than the Uzis and the Thompsons and the
Oh, yeah,
M.
the Uzis look so bad.
It's horrible. And there's no reason for it. It's a stupid thing because, like, a criminal isn't going to take a hacksaw. A criminal isn't going to buy it, whatever, and then stick them
Mm-hmm.
together or whatever they're going to do. It's just a stupid thing to make regular law-abiding folks have to oblige what somebody else is scared about. But getting off on topic there. I was going to say it's kind of like a K-bar. They're awesome knives. I
Mm-hmm.
have multiple K-bars. But how many K-bars do I carry every day? No, I carry a little tiny, sleek pocket knife that fits in my pocket. I'll go grab a K-bar for certain things. And heck yeah, if I had to go to a desert island, I'd rather have the K-bar probably. But
But
like a 1911 or a Thompson, like, yeah, I respect them, but they're not what I'm carrying every day.
yeah, and a K bar is a multi tool. Um, it is a multi tool. It is not 100% a fighting knife. It's a utility knife. Prior to K bars, they had bolos, and truthfully, when the Marine Raiders, first were developed and deployed, they didn't even have K bars. They had what they call bolo knives, which were broader bladed, again, multi-use weapons that you could use to take people out too. But they knew darn well they were using them kind of as machetes and knives as tools more than they were fighting implements. A lot of stuff is still just lore. Oh, they used these. It was a utility knife that they fought with because it had a decent blade. It was hard to break, and knives don't run out of bullets. Knives don't jam. And understand the guns we were using then didn't have the dependability of the firearms we have today. You had a Garand with 8 round mag, excuse me, 8 round clip. But after that, what are you going to do? Fix bayonet?
And they were fighting like battles, like where you still had a front and you had a line, and if you didn't have a resupply, the enemy didn't go, "Oh, timeout! They need more ammos." Like, hold on, let's
Mm-hmm.
pause. Like if the enemy was coming across the whatever, yeah, you had to keep staying alive. And again, we don't have that kind of stuff so much anymore. Well, we haven't had that stuff in a long time, I should say.
So during the Gulf War, we were able to bring what we wanted as far as a knife was concerned. So there were a lot of dudes bringing out the K bars again because we were Marines. So just the run on K bars around Jacksonville was crazy in 1990, 1991. Like it got to the point when I got there, you just didn't see them. They were all snapped up. because we were able to take them. Guys were taking Rambo knives and all that stuff. It was hilarious with no reason whatsoever. You're sitting in the desert with a knife, it's a huge knife. Some kids are doing the bayonets, the M9 bayonets, and they would just sharpen them to like razor perfection because they were bored, somehow thinking they were going to do a lot of hand to hand combat in the desert.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're talking an era when people were wearing, what do you call them, gas masks and had map gear handy because we didn't know what
Mm-hmm.
was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got the whatever hindsight of the GWAT
Hi.
being 20 years over or whatever.
Mm-hmm. It is just weird because, I mean, we were cutting edge. We knew what we had, when you and I were in. And just in the intervening, I realized the other day, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, excuse me, 35 years and 2 weeks ago, I got on a bus in Virginia and got off the bus in Paris Island, South Carolina.
I never even thought about what time of year. I'd have to sit here and think about it hard to remember what time of year.
I knew because it was a week before my 18th birthday.
Oh man, I can't even think anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have any like waypoints to like as far as time of the year. I'd have to think about what year. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'd have to think about it. But as far as what time of year, yeah, I can't even remember at all. I went into a
Yeah.
recruiter's office though, like so it was just, and then it was like what do you call there wasn't any urgency. It wasn't like 9/11 or anything where people were like, let me in, so we're all like, oh, I want to go to college and I want to know what my options are. And like, oh, here they are, that kind of garbage and that kind of thing. So it was anyway, so it was no, it probably had something to coordinate with school or something.
Yeah, my recruiter had zero work to do when I showed up. Hi, I want to be a Marine.
Oh, as far as like having to do stuff? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, yeah, I mean, back in those days, they didn't have to try to talk you into nothing. I guess it was more like, what's available. For me, it was, what's available around here, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, his only problem was dealing with my mom. He had to deal with my mom, who said, my son is doing something. They have a job in the real world equivalent.
I thought about trying to do that, but then just like college, I think for a lot of people, I went in thinking I wanted to be like an MP, but I wanted to be a specific kind of MP. And it's not like they were deluding me. They were like, that's very difficult to do since it's almost, I don't even know if it was a job back then, but I'm like, well, I figure like it will be a job. So I'm going to go towards that. And they're like, all right. But, so it wasn't like, like I hear a lot of people like, oh, you want this? No problem. Wink, wink. Like you'll get it. No problem. They were set really, decent expectations. Like you're asking a lot. But anyway.
Yep.
So some random guy is saying, have you heard about the brand name Wilma?
It's written in cursive, isn't it?
I'm trying to look. I'm going to look at the internet. So I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but it, I don't know. It's like a gun company. No. No, I haven't. Unless it's something else and it just looks like a W, maybe.
Are we talking Buck Rogers pistol, Wilma?
Yeah, that's the only thing I found too is like some old metal looking gun from the olden days. Or like a toy gun from the olden days.
Yeah, if that's it, no, I'm not familiar with it at all. Buck Rogers.
There's at the J.M. Davis Museum, the one that's in Tulsa. That's a guy who had a bunch of guns for his hotel. It's like a tourist attraction. And he was on Route 66. So when he passed, he had set it up so that the state would take his collection, and they have it on display in this museum. And it's a giant, it's like the largest collection of guns in the country, 3,000 guns on display,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Or maybe it's 6. I can't remember off the top of my head anymore. It might even be 9. I'm trying to remember anymore. It's a lot. It's a whole building full of guns. They have a room in there that's not, I mean, it's a pretty good room. It's like size of like a bathroom or something, like a bedroom even. Anyway, it's a pretty big room, and it's all toy guns. It's just all kinds of toy guns from back in the days of plastic and still some metal, but I guess Lone Ranger and stuff when you know those kind of shows were on the radio and on TV, and toy guns were a big part of it, the marketing of that stuff.
Uh,
Yeah, lame. So Mike White is saying, I didn't participate in the poll as you didn't list my favorite brand, Beretta. By the way, I'm distracted. I'm cleaning my AR after a range day. Right on. So
nice.
Beretta, I don't got any problems with Beretta as much as I don't. I shouldn't say that. I own a Beretta, but they just never been a big allure to me or whatever. They're nice and everything. I got no problem with them otherwise. And I like what I do like about them is how old the company is and how diverse they are
Mm-hmm.
and all the stuff they've
Mm-hmm.
done. So I get them, but yeah, I've just never. It's just like I don't know, like European cars or something. Like I just don't own them, so I can respect what they are. I understand them, but I don't. They're not my thing.
I I actually had my opinion change 180 degrees on the Beretta. When I first got out of the Corps, the Beretta had been adopted, but it was not fleet wide. So I never got training on it. So the very first time I pulled the trigger on a Beretta 92 was as a civilian looking for a carry gun. And since I'm bigger than your average bear, I can carry what the heck I want. So my selection of guns in Richmond, Virginia, at the gun range, I still remember it, Southern Gun World. I walked in and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a carry gun. Well, what are you looking for? What are you looking to spend? I gave him a price range. And of course, being a gun guy, and people don't get it, there weren't that many concealed carry guns back then.
Oh, there were hardly any. Like there was no
Yeah,
point. You couldn't
yeah.
carry. Why do they make them? Yeah.
So they weren't, I mean, unless you bought a C camp, that's not happening. Or you purchase like one of the Beretta Cat series, which were really small. Or you spent way too much money and bought a Walther PPK, not happening. And then SIG had their P2, and I forgot what it is, their 380 pistol that was way too big for a 380. So I test fired that and was like, oh, heck no. And then I was like, give me a P226, a 1911, one of these newfangled Glock 17s, and a Beretta 92. So those were the 4 guns I test fired. And the SIG, kind of weird, but I was like, okay, cool. The Glock was ridiculous, couldn't even figure out how to point it in a straight line because the pistol grip angle was weird to me. And again, I had no one to show me anything. This is typical dude, walk into the range, rent a gun. I know how to run it because I'm a veteran. So I couldn't even figure out how to shoot the Glock correctly. So that went bye-bye. Then I picked up the Beretta, and it felt like the trigger took a week to pull and for the gun to go off. I was like, this thing is ridiculous. Obviously, the military doesn't know what they're doing by adopting this garbage. And then I did the 1911, which I was trained on, and I'll do the air quotes and trained because looking back on the training I had, it was pathetic. It was more like a familiarization. It was not a training. And so that's what I decided to carry. The SIG was in the second place, though. The SIG was the second, the Glock was last, and the Beretta would have been third. by default. Fast forward 20, 30 years of shooting, training, shooting different firearms. I really respect the Beretta, how accurate it is, how sweet it is to shoot. Especially if you get some trigger work done on it, is even better. I'd love to try the LTT Beretta, the Langley Tactical version. But even the regular Beretta, I thought was really nice. Now, but back then, I was like, this is ridiculous. How does anybody shoot this? What's with this double action, single action trigger? It's horrific. Especially after I got the CZ75 because kind of close. You know, a full size CZ75 and the Beretta 92 or the Beretta M9.
So something you said there made me think when you come out and you're going around to look at stuff, to either purchase or rent or whatever, right? You're just going around shooting stuff, and your experience. Let's say because when we were in, there was 1911s. The Beretta wasn't
Mm-hmm.
around yet until. I mean, it must have existed, but it wasn't
It
taken
wasn't
by.
widely spread adopted, regardless of what your Wikipedia entry says. It
Well, I
was
mean, it
not.
wasn't until the 90s or something that they took the bread anyway. Like it wasn't, right? It wasn't. It was
Well,
still the 19.
it was adopted in '85,
Oh,
but
85? Oh,
yeah, it was
okay.
adopted in
So,
'85.
but still, yeah, in 89 or whatever, like it was somewhat, yeah, everybody
Yep.
had a 1911. But the thing is, nobody shoots a pistol anyway. If you're lucky, you see a pistol. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had just happened to, I would do like extracurricular armorers courses. So just to do it, just because I guess you got a little bit extra pay or whatever. But mainly I was just interested in it because it was like free armorers classes. Who wouldn't want to do that? So, but anyway, so I'm just thinking you're from if your experiences with the 1911, probably, if at all, and then again, some probably military police, and then some guards had revolvers, and there's probably somebody else or two that had a revolver for whatever specific reason back then. And I only know that because I took the armorer's course. I had to learn a 38 revolver. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's like the shotgun for some people, again, for some reasons, because it's against the Geneva Convention. Only certain people can have a shotgun. And then whatever else, like you said, the grease gun still existed and the Thompson still existed for certain things. But then it doesn't matter. Whatever you had experience with, you leave, and your experiences with that, unless you're wealthy and you had a chance to buy a bunch of stuff, or there was some rental back then, or you knew somebody that had a bunch of stuff, you didn't have any time on the clock with a Beretta or a Sig or anything else. So how would you even know about them? And what you would get was some rental time. So you have how many hours and hours and hours and days and months maybe with a 1911, and then you shoot a Beretta for an hour or 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, how do you expect us to have opinions on these things? Unless you just for whatever reason clicked with it, your grip angle or something was like, oh, it's amazing, or just something about it. So that's I was just going to say some of that is probably that. And nowadays it's just a little different. We even before we purchase, we explore stuff. Back in the day, you didn't really do. You'd go to the store and see what they had, and that's what you bought. There's no internet to
Mm-hmm.
do research. Like you knew somebody that had something, and maybe you had an idea before you went, but whatever was at the store is what you bought. You didn't have this idea of like, oh, I could buy anything in the world. If the store doesn't have what I want, I'm going to go buy exactly what I want. So anyway, I'm just getting at it was just a different world, and we probably couldn't be expected to have an appreciation for the whatever it is about a Beretta or whatever it is about a Sig. Because how would we? We had no awareness of it other than what's in magazines and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
that's seeing the picture of it. That's not shooting it. That's not fiddling with it.
But it is funny that, man, do I wish I could jump in the little hot tub time machine and go back to buy that P22, that West German made P226, that Gen 1 Glock 17. You know what I'm saying? Like the guns that I had in my hand were from that era, from the early '90s. So yeah, the Sig had West Germany written on it on the side because that's where it was manufactured.
For a while there, I was doing like research on the different companies, and Glock was pretty easy because Glock invented it for the, blah, blah, blah. And everybody knows his story. It's all written down. Beretta has a super long history, but they
Mm-hmm.
wrote it down because they're proud of it and stuff. SIG is like SIG and Sawyer, and
Mm-hmm.
SIG USA is different than there's like three different SIG
Sig
US.
Arms.
Yeah, right. And they keep getting bought and sold, and it's divisions of the main company. Like SIG is the same, but they're SIG Sawyer isn't the same as SIG Arms, and SIG isn't the same as SIG Sawyer. Like they're all different. They all have a different name for a reason, and it has to do with what country they're in. So anyway, I tried to sit down and try to do that, and this was years ago, and it's changed since then. But even years ago, I gave up. It's like this is actually too much for me. I'm more like than I want to try to keep track of for SIG. Like I'm interested, but wow, there's a lot to deal with there. So I know that it's complicated and stuff, but um, it's all over the place. And you would think that that's one that they're not hiding nothing. It's just that there's a lot to it. And now they're here, I think, kind of permanently. They
Oh
have
yeah,
the
yeah.
USA is established. I think they just are they the ones that I saw was starting a new factory in South Carolina or someplace.
Oh, I didn't know they started another one.
I don't know.
Um,
Somebody I was reading an article not too long ago about one of the companies that's one of the Europe companies, but like is their slash USA brand version
mhm.
has started a whole another giant factory.
Well, I find as a Southerner myself, born and raised, these southern states are opening themselves up for firearms manufacturers from the north to move down. They don't
Oh heck,
understand the double-sided sword of that, the two-edged sword of congratulations, you have now Smith and Wesson in your town, but you've dragged a whole bunch of people that voted blue from the Northeast into your southern state. You know what I mean? It's like the politics are going to follow them.
well the company philosophy maybe, but I'm thinking those are pretty when they do that they're bringing down like a couple of white collar jobs, but it's mostly they're hiring locally all the people to work there,
Well, it
right?
depends because a lot of them have learned their lesson. Of hey, you still need the people that run the machines and put everything together. It's not just management, or you're
Well,
going
that's
to
true.
have.
And some people are like, "This is my job. I don't care where I live. I want to keep
Mhm,
doing this job. I like my job." So yeah, they probably will move with the company, I guess.
some
But I would
will.
think that somebody that's like working. Well, the thing is, the guy working for Sig or the lady working for Sig or Smith and
Mhm,
Wesson, I guess, is probably pro gun to some extent. But that doesn't mean that the family they bring with them is,
That's
and
what
they
I mean.
all vote. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, oh, the gun company. I'm like, yo, bro. And remember, some people just see it as a job, but it's a job they know. I mean, how many years do you work a job before you go, yeah, this is what I do? You're not going to 180 and, excuse me, many people don't go, yeah, I did this as a machinist working for Smith and Wesson left, and now I'm a truck driver. Some do, some don't.
No, look at Wyndham. The company left, and they all said, "Let's keep doing this." Like, so what?
Yeah,
If they left, we'll just keep doing it.
they kept doing it as Bushmaster. Now he came back and did he brought Bush, he went Brendan weapons. Why, they still open? Did they open up again?
No, no, I guess I should have said, look back in the day when
Oh,
Bushmaster left and Wyndham kept going. I mean, yeah, they have failed now. I brought up a bad example.
yeah, okay. No, I was hoping, even though I mean, truthfully, they didn't bring a darn thing out new. They didn't roll with the punches, and they killed themselves off through lack of innovation. I'm like, when Anderson is doing more than Wyndham weaponry, like Anderson came out with a dissipator. Anderson came out with their own pistol. What are you doing? Even Bear Creek was even Diamondback came out with 1911s. Like Diamondback, AR company is making like $1,200 1911s now. See, Ghost is out there.
Yep. I just went through and said hey to everybody. So we had a question from before that I blew past. Tomato is asking, do you prefer 5.56 or 7.62? So the first
Which
question,
762?
exactly. In that context, it can mean AR versus AK, but it could also mean AR 5.56 versus AR 10 in 5.6 7.62 by 51 or 308, same thing. So Well, how do you either question? I guess which ways do you answer it in the two directions?
Listen, everybody has this love affair, they think, with the AR-10 platform. I don't. I'd like one, and if I want one, I'd like the one they had from Brownells, either the Cuban or the Angolan version or whatever the two versions they had. I'd like each of those. I didn't know they were going to shut it down, or I would have made a lot more effort to buy one back in the day when they came out with their Brownell with BRN10s. I want one, but when it comes to 762 by 556, I'm taking 556 all day. When it comes to 308, 762 by 51, I'm taking 556 all day, every day. Now, when it's between 762 by 39, the Russian thing, I love shooting my SKS. It is just a lot of fun. And I have AR from Bear Creek Arsenal, both a 16 and a 10.5 inch in 762 by 39. Again, fun, but the dependability just is not there. So to me, in both cases, the 556 wins out because I have so much time on it. I mean, I just know an AR. I know how to run an AR like a lot. I don't think people understand how much time we spent with it, even in the military, just the boot camp alone. And let's not talk about the 4 years, 5 years after that.
Well, you do get intimate with it, cleaning it all the dang time, and like I don't know,
Carrying it
get
everywhere you go.
quizzed more on it and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you just you have nothing else to do except fiddle with this machine gun that they give you. So you end up fiddling with the machine gun that they give you. Plus, they tell you don't fiddle with it, so you end up fiddling with it constantly.
Of course, you fiddle with it. Hey, make sure you never test the rear sight.
I wonder why.
Whatever you
Um,
do, don't turn the rear sight. The military is responsible for inventing a fidget spinner. It's called the rear sight on the M16A2.
but it's for mine. I definitely like the AR and all that. I don't have a problem with it. But I like 7.62. I just think I'd rather be throwing more lead. And so
Mm-hmm.
to the 39, but like I agree with you with the 308. The 308 just becomes too big of a rifle. So maybe when I was 18, I didn't give a shit no more, or I didn't give a shit about
Mm-hmm.
how much stuff weighed. But or if you were setting somebody on a roof or something, totally different story. But
Mm-hmm.
I respect the larger 308 but if I'm going to go that large, I'd rather go over to 51R and have your choice of like Nagants and PKMs if I was
Mm-hmm.
just theoretical, because now you got just more robust platforms. My problem with the AR-10s are that they're so proprietary. Nothing ever was issued, nothing
Mm-hmm.
ever developed from them. So that means it was all commercial. And since no one sat down and said, let's do it this way or that way, or, like the
Mm-hmm.
Glock was so dominant, since the Glock dominated pistols so much that it became a form factor that everything cloned or mimicked. And then that created a world of, oh, we don't have to wait for the main companies to give us stuff. We can develop our own stuff, and let's develop it for the Glock. That was the dominating gun. And then of course now it's moved on to where, oh well, now they've realized, oh, we don't need to have this dominating platform. We can work off whatever platform we want, since we're so nimble and you know adaptable now. But it was the Glock that created all that. So I think it's the same with it never happened with the 308. So the 308's just all spun off into so many directions. There's just nothing. There's nothing consistent. I mean, except for maybe the pistol grip and I can't even say the muzzle brake. Like
Mm-hmm.
at some point you can't even say the pistol grip interface anymore. So ARs are just too proprietary. No matter what path you go down, you're stuck there. So if you're going to go down some path and be stuck there, I'm going Soviet because I just want a more
Yeah,
robust
see,
gun.
I didn't even think about the 762 by 51R, 54R. Uh, I like shooting Soviet stuff, dude. I just the length of pull felt right for somebody as tall as I am. I still like the shorter length of pull. My dissipator has the M16A1 length of pull, which I think is about the same length of pull as an SKS. It's shorter.
Yeah, the only
Uh,
people that want long stocks are people that lay down and shoot at long distance at like they're hunting or something. Like nobody walking around with a gun wants a long stock on it.
no, it's like you can't square up. It just feels different, which was funny to me. I thought it was entertaining that the two rifles I shot on what is it, November 11th, at the Marine Corps Heritage shoot, was my dissipator with iron sights that had the A1 length of pull, and my M16A4 clone, which of course has the longer A2 length of pull. And you could really tell the difference in those lengths of pull. Like, because I would shoot one and then switch over and shoot the other, and you could just tell. Like, everything shifted. And because I live in Jersey, we have to have a fixed stock anyway. So I fixed our stocks for the diversity shoots at A1 length, which if Vietnamese and Filipinos can shoot it, they're smaller statured people, and they should take care of most small men, small women, and kids around the 5 foot and over mark.
It has nothing to do with anything, but since you said kids shooting, that made me think. Have you ever done anything with Apple
Appleseed?
Appleseed or the other one?
Uh,
Paul Revere. Is it Paul Revere
no, I
name?
did. I didn't even know it was a Paul Revere thing.
I think some of
Oh,
them got in a fight and they started a second, but they're essentially pretty similar.
oh, I didn't, only because Jersey didn't have one. When I got here and started buying firearms in Jersey in 2012. Excuse me, when I started buying firearms in 2012, I'd been in Jersey for 20 years by then. They didn't have an Appleseed, and the closest Appleseed was in Pennsylvania, and I would have had to stay in a hotel overnight, and it was just not cost prohibitive, but when you're new to something, like you're like, well, how much do you spend to do something like that? It's 2 days of shooting classes, and it's like an overnight stay. And no, I never pulled the trigger on it. I really wish I had, because I was willing in my mind enough to actually go to the Appleseed and actually become an Appleseed trainer. And that's only done in Texas. And that's one solid week of training, learning the history and the Appleseed way of teaching, firearms fundamentals, marksmanship fundamentals.
And that's what I was kind of curious about. Like, so you didn't get any influence from that, I guess, yet.
No, 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 I didn't. What I do is volunteer every year for CNJFO's youth shoot, and then that CNJFO is a Sacramento organization here in Jersey, Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners. And yearly they host, sometimes if we're lucky, twice a year, they host a kids shoot, and I volunteer for that. And then ANJRPC, the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, host a family day, and I volunteer for that. So I train a significant amount of children on a yearly basis, but I never made it to an Appleseed. Matter of fact, Eric from CNJFO just texted me now. He's the guy that actually organizes and put together the events. My man brings, I don't even know how many. If you go back and watch one of my videos of it, I'm sure you can pause it and count, but it's well over 50 rifles that he brings, his personal rifles, to these 22 shoots to introduce kids to firearms.
And that's like 50 different kinds of guns from a collection, or like 50
It's like
similar guns.
it's crickets, like a crap load of crickets, right, from Keystone. Then he has some 1022 of different types. Then I told you he had the falling block and just all different types, lever actions, everything, because they try to expose the kids to all the different actions. So they start them out with the crickets because that's a single shot bolt action, and they change it up, and then bring in other things. So I've brought in a Myruga 1022, but dressed up like a PS90 with a suppressor on it, a P90 with a suppressor on it, with one of those kits. And the kids love it because I put a red dot on it. I put a flashlight with a green laser on it. So now it looks like something from Call of Duty. And now they've shot other guns. They've shot bolt actions. They shot lever actions. And now here's a semi-auto that they're, doing 10-round mag dumps. And you know how sometimes kids can't get behind it. They try to figure out how to sight it. They lean in too far back. I have them turn on the laser and they just put the dot on the target and light it up. And the smiles on their faces makes it all worthwhile.
All right, we got the poll going, and let's see. Sig is winning 42%. HK is coming in second with 33. Glock coming in third with 25, which means FN did not get one single vote. So I guess I probably should have put Beretta in there instead of FN. Maybe you could change the.
Yeah, I don't think FN could win if you had this poll in FN's factory. That's how little they care about their own handguns.
Well, it's sort of true. And they don't really have as much line either. They sort of make military guns and then they're like, well, we already make guns. Let's make a few other guns too. Or maybe even it's just like, hey, let's sell some of our military guns, really. Do they make any? Well, they make some. I shouldn't say they only make military guns. Now that I'm thinking about it, they probably make some sporting guns. But they're not anywhere near as the market share that these other companies do. And H&K is probably seriously close to being in that tier also, right?
Yeah, they really are. They really are. They make a good overbuilt gun. And I mean, truthfully, I would have owned a USP, except they cost exorbitantly too much freaking money. Mainly because
they're over designed too. Like, I mean, I guess it's a design style or something, but the mag releases I'm thinking of, like, okay, like sometimes you got to work around somebody else already has a design, and you have to do something different to not be copying them. But does that need to exist? Like the idea that or I guess a couple of their mag releases, or maybe I'm confusing them with FN a little bit, but some of their mag releases were in the bottom of the trigger guard.
yeah,
Are
yeah.
like they're just awkward and then they hurt you, or they're just unnecessarily difficult because they're trying to be ambidextrous all the time, and it's like ambidextrous sounds good, but then when you start using it, you're every time you bump your gun, you're knocking a thing off. You're hitting levers every time you touch your gun. So to that level, like I I can see some of these gadgets are neat, and I'm wondering if they because they like to design, or if it's they know that when you have a thing with more gadgets, it's going to sell better, compared to your boring competitor. So is it that they need these gadgets, or that they know the gadgets are going to be more appealing on first glance, but sometimes like the Glock, nobody's going to suggest that Glock said, hey, 34 parts when other guns have 134 parts, because that's going to be more rugged and reliable in the field. Like, I don't think that was his number one priority. It was probably more like, this is simpler. Why do I need all these other parts? Now, the result of it having 34 parts is a gun that hardly ever breaks and just works all the time. And then other people went, oh, that's a characteristic I value in the gun. But, Beretta never sat around and thought, they needed their gun to work all the time, but they never thought about simplifying it to get there. So anyway, I'm just saying, I don't think that some of these companies really think about end use. They just think about a lot more. A lot more.
I think, okay, because with HKs, I actually like that release. I like that mag release. I prefer that mag release. And because the department I worked for had USPs, what I did was I purchased a HK USP licensed airsoft gun, right? Because if I had to train these morons, I wasn't going to freaking buy an entire HK until I knew how to run one efficiently. With my department, because they continually ask me before the quals, hey, can I take a class with you? Well, I'm not going to show you how to shoot a Glock when you have to qualify with an HK. You have that, and they had double action only. That's what our department did, or double action, single action. I'm sorry, but these guys couldn't shoot it, so I purchased it, and I found out it has the same trigger pull. Was it Umarex? HK worked with Umarex, gave them permission, so it used the same holster. The magazine was the same size as the USP magazine, so I was able to do all of that. And I fired thousands of rounds through, and of course, did thousands of mag changes. And I really like that magazine release that was there that you can hit with your index finger. Because in every firearm, every handgun I use, I have to break my firing grip to hit the mag release. Every one of them, as big as my hands are, my thumbs can't reach the mag release on even a 1911 without breaking my firing grip. And to have that European mag release, I was able to hit it with my index finger, drop the mag, change the mag. So it was faster for me. But a lot of people that grew up with where, the Americans have theirs, which is where 1911s have it, it's very ergonomic. But if you can't reach it, you got to break your firing grip. I also learned that breaking your firing grip is really no big deal. Sorry, but it's not. Just break your firing grip, reacquire it, and start shooting again after the reload. And I think what HK did was Glock kept it simple, but you only get one flavor of Glock. You're getting the Glock they give you. And HK set up the USP to give you all kinds of trigger pulls. You know what I mean? Like it was
Oh yeah,
modular.
exactly. Yeah, like same as their other guns. They're like, hey, there's different people, different conditions, different use
Hmm.
use things.
And I
So
think they
yeah,
really appealed to law enforcement. It allowed law enforcement agencies to tailor their USP to their own philosophy, even though that philosophy probably came from more likely not gun people.
but that's what I'm saying. Did that need to exist, or did they know that that was their edge up on the competition in these? Because he made these guns for not just our
Hmm.
police, but other countries' police, law enforcement, security, whatever. So
Yeah,
they know what gave them not so much marketing, but like as far as a mechanical advantage, our
I
guns
think
are
so.
modular. Our guns, once you get used to the what's it called, the
Yeah.
use method of operation, now you can apply that to this gun because it's scaled up or scaled down. Once you're using our guns, you got this similar. And Glock didn't have that because it was just Glock. But if
Yep.
you're going from a rifle to a carbine to something else, and it's like now you're within our brand, there was a reason to stay with your brand, and that kind of went with that philosophy. Like, let's give you a menu so that
Hmm.
yeah, your water operations, your helicopter guy, and your guy on the street can all order from the same catalog.
I also thought it was, and this is just me again thinking about it. There isn't a gun culture in other countries like this. It is in America. So, and it's definitely not a handgun culture in most countries. So, the first time you shoot a firearm, a handgun, was probably in police training or military training. So, there was no learning or unlearning where the magazine release was, the mag button was, right? Oh, yeah, because I shoot my dad's fill in the blank pistol at home. That really didn't happen in most countries. So, when they learned how to use the HK mag release, that's how mag releases on pistols work. To most of the cops, to most of the military, it was just that's the way the gun works. That's the way you run it. There was nothing to unlearn. So I don't think it was as weird. But then you get to America where we've had John Moses Browning and that thumb release is 1911. People rocked with it. I mean, that's where we put them. And that's where a lot of the world put them. And HK was like, nah, we can be ambi and put it underneath the trigger guard. Also, Walther did it too for their PPQ. At least the first version of PPQ. That was the one I was introduced to and loved it. If I wasn't so tactically thrifty, that would have been my first striker fired semi-automatic polymer pistol. But they cost a lot. And I was able to get my Glock 19 on sale from AIM Surplus for like barely over $300.
I'm looking out there to see if we're corking anybody. I don't think there's really that much happening today. It's kind of a lazy day. You got a bunch of stuff going on in real life over there?
Tomorrow, I've already recorded the videos. I'm going to post up the next diversity shoot because we have one coming Thursday at Gun for Hire. But I'm putting another one in the queue on Eventbrite, so I have 3 weeks to promote the last one of the year at Recoil Range in Monroe. So I didn't want to overlap them too much because that would just confuse people and they'd buy tickets to the wrong one and wrong date and that kind of thing. So that's what I have going on. I'm going to call somebody to help me put together my media kit to make it look professional for SHOT Show. We already booked the rooms. I was online trying to buy the tickets last night and had some issues, so going to do that. Yeah. So we're flying out. I'm doing a 501c3. Like it has to be launched before the end of the month. I'm going to reach out. We're going to get a rental car, and I'm trying to find a company to actually pay for our rental car for the week at SHOT Show. So we can actually record in the car, and it can be and I don't care who freaking, does it, but I figure I can record some stuff in the car and call it the whatever company rolling mobile studio. And that could be one of the things I use to try to, rent cars when we go on events. And
so
we can record
park off of Charlie.
Yeah, kind of like do Charlie's thing, but I mean mine is going to be audio.
Riding pistol with Tony.
Yeah, right. Held hostage with Tony. Welcome to the Stockholm Syndrome podcast.
That makes sense though. When you're going to do that, add parking in there because now all the places in Vegas started charging for parking, and since one of them they all did, yeah. So anything near the strip's charging for parking now. From what I can tell, well, anywhere near that you're not going to want to walk for 200 miles before SHOT Show is like let's say 30 a day. So the other thing is, even if you get a vehicle for what you're talking about, you might want to consider that monorail because the monorail drops us off right in front of the one door.
Yeah, that freaking sucks because that was our whole conversation last year about because we took Ubers. And each day one of us paid, but you got to think about it's $20 each way because we're staying at the same place.
Ubers are $20-$30 depending on how far away you are, but then you figure they start charging for parking, less people are going to drive, so more people are going to Uber. I think there'll be Ubers. I'm not saying they're going to run out of Ubers, but I'm just saying there's only so much road in front of the thing at 8 a.m. So be more line to get there. You have to get there earlier. That means everyone else will be thinking the same thing. The line will start at 7 a.m. and people won't be some dumbasses will get there at 8 and be sitting in line until 8:30 before they can even walk in the door. Even if they run an Uber. Because I think it's a debate. If you're sitting in traffic a mile away waiting to get in, you're like tempted to go, oh well, I'll just leave the meter go, stop me here, and I'll just pay and walk. But then you're a sucker because now you're walking for a mile before you're about to go walk for 8 hours. So I'd rather be wait in the car right until the door to get dropped off right at the door. But then you're paying a fortune to sit in traffic to get sitting there. You know what I mean? So that's why that monorail is looking more appealing. And then the side of that is that a bunch of people are thinking the same thing. So that monorail is probably, going to be packed as soon as you get off the monorail. You're going to be standing in line just to walk into the place. But so there's no win. There's no win. I'm just saying, throw some potential parking, $30 a day for parking in there, which is essentially, like you're saying, one of the Ubers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's $30 each way. You try to nail everything. I mean, since we know where we're going to be at, the Airbnb, we know there's, convenience store, liquor store down the street at the bottom of the hill. We walked last time just from the liquor store up to the house. I got to start getting in my steps now to try to prepare myself for something I can't prepare myself for, which is marathon walking season. Because right after that, 9 days later or less is the Great American Outdoor Show.
Yep.
And then 2 weeks later, I'm going to be flying to Ambassador Academy down in Florida. So I'll be doing that for 3 or 4 days. And that'll be my January, February. And now, of course, I have to start my season here. And I want to do at least one tour in 2024, if not two. And I'd like to go back and see the crazy people in Nebraska again, because that was really a positive experience for me. And if we can put together the tour that we talked about last year that we couldn't because I wasn't a 501c3, that'd be great, because Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma would be awesome. And I know I won't have an issue flying in with, firearms.
If you went Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, then you wouldn't have to worry about a state with a panhandle in it. You could just stay in decent rectangle-shaped states.
Yeah, I'm from the East Coast, bro. The shape of the state doesn't bother me. Our stuff looked like it was drawn by Michael J. Fox on a bender.
That's true. You guys have irregular-ass looking states out there. We're used to our nice square and rectangle shapes and state shapes out here.
Yeah,
Except
we're like, what?
Oklahoma and Utah. Then they went crazy in Texas.
It's like, where do we stop the state once we hit water?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the state line.
And then probably a lot of where's this line going to be? Let's have a giant battle until okay, it'll be right here. And then it just
right here.
straight line from here to there. There you go. There's the line.
Yep. It's like, all right, we're going to, you see that line over there? Yeah, we're going to just shoot for that big white tree. That's the state line. All right, cool.
I bet you that's what a lot of it was, that kind of shit, right? Okay, I'm sick of walking. This is the line now.
Oh, yeah, you can't tell me.
Were like that, I bet.
Yeah, just stop. You can't tell me a state was the Department of Transportation surveyor is lazier now than they were then. Look, man, I got a hole in my moccasins. I'm tired of walking.
Yeah.
Border.
Or I'm gonna pay you $40 to walk over there and put this stake in the ground where it's supposed to be. And that guy's like, yeah, okay, I'll put that stake in the ground where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, put the stake down. We're good.
Walk about halfway there and put the stake in the ground. Yeah, it's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's there. It's where you said.
Anyway, so you got 2 more diversity shoots. Then we got SHOT Show. I don't know what Clover's got going on. I know Clover's working on his newsletter. Did you get his newsletter?
I don't think so. I'll have to check.
If you're one who follows Clover Tack, check out your emails. Make sure you're getting his newsletters and check those out. Otherwise, let's see. We'll be back tomorrow doing a knife chat in the morning. Later on this afternoon, you got DM Foss out there. He'll be doing, tonight is the mouse party, I believe. Saturday mouse party, which is just a conversation in the evening with no real topic. Just show up and have a conversation, kind of overnight. And then before that, Brooke Cheney will be doing Suicide Prevention Saturday. She's topic today is the gift of giving. When you're feeling down, helping others is the way to go. You've got Black Friday, where all the stores do their sales. Then you got Small Business Saturday, so hopefully people are out supporting gun shops if you're able or interested. Then you've got Cyber Monday, and that's where, right, you've got the online stores. We'll be doing some Cyber Monday stuff at our gear website store. And then you've got Giving Tuesday. And maybe that's what Brooke was talking about, or maybe not. But just throwing that out there. As capitalists, this whole idea of shopping for the holidays uh, became more and more of a thing this time of year. And that turned into a time where retail stores uh, did a bunch of stuff and then throughout the year. And then this is where they would make back all their investment, whatever they invested in product or in upgrading the store and making the shopping experience different or better. This is when they would get their payoff. And that's developed through the internet and through time to be the Cyber Monday and then the Small Business Saturday to help compete with the giant stores and the, what do you call those things? The giant department stores, I guess. If they're even, there's probably a name for the superstores now. So, the mom and pops, the people that understand the thing that you're interested in, if it's bicycles or guitars or cameras, those people that actually are passionate about it and started a business and pay real estate tax and rent or utilities for sure, probably some kind of, who knows what kind of tax and healthcare and all the other stuff, insurance. I say that already. All the stuff
Hmm.
that they got to deal with for a business, just so that they can, do something in their passion. Today's the day to support those companies. Garden centers. We've lost all our garden centers in Tucson. Super frustrating. So now I have no one to go to, anybody can tell you how to plant grass, but how about plant grass here in Tucson? And what about this part of Tucson versus that part of Tucson? The garden centers are the people that understood that stuff. And I'm sure, again, that's different if you're, no matter what it is, even probably just anything you could think of. It's the small businesses that were really our flavor and our and our depth of our understanding, right? Our memories. And it's frustrating when those are struggling and when they're not plentiful or flourishing. And I don't want to make it look doom and gloom because it's not like we're dying. We've got all kinds of new small businesses out there. So anyway, this is Small Business Saturday, and this whole concept of kind of paying attention to capitalism over this 4-day weekend. I think a little bit of that is the Giving Tuesday, and maybe that's what Brooke will be talking about. Uh, do we have grass in Tucson? Unfortunately, yes. Now, there's a thing called Bermuda grass. Has anybody ever heard of that before? I've lived out here so long, I don't know if that's common or not anymore. It's green and it's on the ground. It's kind of grass. When you have it all over the place, it looks like grass, and when you're standing far away from it, it totally looks like grass. But it's more of like, what a spider plant is? It's kind of like a spider plant, and I don't know what that kind of plant is called anymore, but it puts roots down, but it doesn't use seed, and it just grows like an arm. Like, it grows roots and it grows up and it's kind of grassy, but then every once in a
Hmm.
while it grows an arm, and that arm will reach way down like 6 feet away and then start some roots, and then it's another plant. So it's really annoying because it'll trip you. Like, those arms are really strong and they're on the ground and they're connected to roots on both sides. So that it's essentially like you're going to trip over them if you're not paying attention. So it's kind of like a gnarly grass. You wouldn't want to run around in it. Like, if a dog poops in it, you can't just go scoop it up. It falls down into there, and it's like, it's like a lame grass, but it's like a weed. It grows everywhere. So, and that's the problem, is it grows everywhere, and it's a lot like that spider plant where it's growing over here. And it's not happy. It'll just grow 6 feet up across the fence and then down, and now it's in the neighbor's yard because it's
That's some amazing stuff.
yeah, it's crazy, and it grows pretty quick too. Uh, so everybody hates Bermuda grass, but there's that kind of grass technically. And people that don't live here, like that just moved here, will go, "Oh, I'm going to buy a bag of Bermuda grass seed and put it on my yard. Look how it's grass. Oh, it's grass. It's just like grass. It took me hardly any water." And then they're like, "Ah, I planted alien spawn. It's growing everywhere." So then they do
It's
everything
like,
they can to kill it.
like growing bamboo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, exactly. If you're used to having bamboo, I forget that bamboo is probably worse in some parts of the country than even here. But yeah, you grow bamboo, and now everybody in the neighborhood has bamboo if
Oh
there's
yeah.
water. But I grow it in
Oh yeah.
containers. I've mastered bamboo. But yeah, it's a kind of like a small bamboo. So we have that, and then there's sod where people will just scrape, probably from somewhere north. They scrape it, roll it up, and then people will put that out and desperately try to keep that alive out here. But that's like taking a piece of desert, and our desert isn't like the sand dunes desert. Our desert is just hot all the time and it's sand, so it's like the beach. So you put down some sod on the beach and then water it all the time. Like it can grow, but you're putting a lot of water on it. So
Oh
most
yeah.
people look at you like you're an asshole if you're running grass out here. But there's whole neighborhoods where there's grass. They just they live somewhere where there's grass and they think you're supposed to have grass in your yard and it's a free country and they have grass in their yard and they just pay a lot to have grass in their yard. And then we have Saudi Arabia, which has a giant chunk of Arizona that pays to
Hmm.
spray, make grow oats or some shit there. So yeah, we've got
Alfalfa.
is it alfalfa, and that's essentially
Yeah.
grass. So they're paying to grow grass for their stupid cows over here. So we have way too much grass in Arizona actually. Gizzard is saying where he grew up, he had a patch of Bermuda grass in the backyard outside the door. It was fine until fall. Then it turned brown. Oh, that's the other problem is it's not like grass. It looks green and it kind of looks like grass for a little while. And then, yeah, when it dies, it just looks like a bunch of hay exploded in your backyard or like somebody vomited, like Godzilla vomited a hairball in your backyard or something. But it also doesn't die. It's like the cockroach of grass. But I don't mind it. There's nothing that hurts out of it. That's the thing. Except for it'll trip you. There's nothing sharp in it. There's nothing that's like a burr. I got a long-haired dog, so anything. There's like a ton of things out here that are clingy, like they're designed to catch onto the critter's foot and get traveled around until they fall off. So they're not really cactuses. They're just itchy, and they're just kind of they're really adjacent to a cactus. They're just some kind of seed pod that'll be annoying, and that kind of stuff gets in your shoes or in your pants or whatever. Like it's Bermuda's not that, at least, and there's so much of the stuff around here that is like that I don't have a problem with Bermuda. But I get people that don't like Bermuda. And if you had regular grass, you wouldn't want Bermuda in your grass because it'd love living in there, but it would look horrible, and like Gizzard's saying, it gets brown whenever it feels like it. The rest of your grass is green and there's a bunch of dead stuff because it's
Yeah,
one of
we
the
do obsess over that.
if something grows fast, it's going to die also. Like, those things don't usually grow fast and then live. They usually grow fast, die, and then live over there now. And that's one of those kind of things.
Yeah, because the yard at the Airbnb we had last year and again we'll have this year has zero grass in it. It's pebbles, it's rocks. I mean, it's landscaped. It's just no grass.
Oh, Gizzard is saying what he has was nice and soft on bare feet. No, you wouldn't walk through bare with Bermuda. I mean, like somebody who has calluses over their feet could do it, I guess, but normal people aren't going to walk over Bermuda in their bare feet, I don't think. Mainly because it'd be like walking on like a bunch of plastic straws or something. It wouldn't hurt. It would just be annoying, and it's not like normal grass where it's comfortable. There's some blades of grass in there, but it's mostly like walking on. I think it would be a lot like walking on straws. Like if somebody just threw like boxes and boxes of straws out in the backyard,
Hmm.
yeah, you could walk on it, but it would feel weird, and every once in a while a straw would jab you. It wouldn't poke you, but it would be uncomfortable. I think that's the best way to explain it because the things are dying all the time, and they are pretty strong. So the broken ones are like a hollow chopstick essentially. They do crush, but they they pinch your foot while they were crushing. Anyway, we're talking a lot about grass here. Um. Anyway, I guess that's how you know it's over when we started talking about walking around bare feet in inferior quality ground cover.
Yeah,
All right,
we're at the end of the gun conversation.
yeah. All right. So with that, we'll leave it to Brooke to help normalize the conversation about mental health this afternoon. Um, Hillbilly Up does a show in the evenings, and then Foss does a show. She Fires is also out there. Didn't say hey, and she'll have a show tomorrow afternoon if everything goes according to the typical plan. Worth
Nice.
checking out, a live show. And Gizzard, I'm pretty sure Gizzard said he's resolved to do a 4 hour long knife show every Sunday morning. Uh, but we'll see. Maybe that was maybe I'm just remembering something incorrectly there. But he may or may not be live this weekend because of the holiday and everything. Otherwise, you can check Gizzard out on Fridays. And if I miss anybody, I apologize. I think, Ghost has a show on Tuesday. He was out there earlier. Check out his or the Jarhead podcast, which goes out occasionally. He's on Fridays. I don't know if it's every Friday or just every once in a while on a Friday. I think I've got everybody now. So we'll throw a quick commercial out there for our gear website store. I want to thank everyone who's been buying stuff on Amazon. Much appreciated. Gizzard has a store out there. Ghost has a store. She Fires has an Amazon store. Tony, did you get an Amazon store yet?
Not yet. It's coming.
We definitely got to get Tony an Amazon store. But whenever you're buying stuff on Amazon, it doesn't cost nothing to go in the door through somebody's store, essentially. Just, let Amazon know this person sent me, by going to their store and doing your shopping. You don't have to buy the stuff that's in their store. You just walk. It's like going to the mall. If you walk in through our door, anything you buy in the mall, they're smart enough to know, oh, this person sent me in, give them a small cut. And that accumulates. And it's, this time of year especially, much appreciated. Thank you for that. And again, I have a store over at Gear Websites, and the people that are purchasing stuff over there are helping keeping us doing our thing. So we'll throw a quick commercial up for that, and we'll be back. Well, we'll all be back at different times.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.